I would love to see him have a farewell tour, then just walk away, because he's one of the three greatest players I've ever seen after Michael and Kobe. But I don't want to see him just hanging on just for the heck of it.
Charles Barkley just blew the lid off what he claims is the NBA's biggest secret, and it's got nothing to do with basketball skills, but everything to do with power. His latest fiery outburst wasn't just a typical Barkley rant made for headlines. It was a direct accusation that the league's new second apron rule was never about fairness or balance. According to him, it was a calculated move designed to stop one man, LeBron James, from running the league he helped shape. The rule, introduced in 2023, was said to tighten spending and trade freedom for high payroll teams. But Barkley says that's just the cover story. In reality, it was about protecting the NBA from LeBron's growing influence, the same influence that's turned entire front offices into his personal chessboard. We've seen this play out for years. LeBron dictating trades, reshaping rosters, and pulling management strings to his advantage. Back in 2019, the Lakers sacrificed their young core, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, to bring in Anthony Davis. That move earned them a championship, but it left the franchise stripped of its depth. Then in 2022, coach Frank Vogel was fired mere weeks after LeBron publicly questioned the team's direction. While reports claim Vogel had lost the locker room, insiders insist it was LeBron's inner circle, his agents, his allies, his media connections, who orchestrated the shakeup. Every decision, every demand only strengthened his hold on one of the most iconic franchises in basketball history.
But as promised, we're joined right now by a two-time inductee into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame and 11-time All-Star, a 1993 NBA MVP Award winner. He won an Olympic gold medal as a member of the 1992 NBA Dream Team. He's won 5 Sports Emmy Awards.
The illusion finally cracked in 2024 when federal agents dropped an indictment that sent shockwaves through the NBA. Damon Jones, LeBron's longtime friend and former teammate, was accused of leaking confidential injury information to gamblers. Investigators allege that Jones tipped off associates just before the February 9th, 2023 matchup between the Lakers and the Bucks, a mere 2 days after LeBron surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to become the league's all-time scoring leader. In a now infamous text, Jones reportedly wrote, "Get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight before the info gets out." The Lakers lost, and court filings claim Jones walked away with thousands. Then in January 2024, it happened again. This time, the inside scoop was about Anthony Davis's injury. One high-stakes bettor dropped $100,000 against the Lakers. The gamble failed, but the fallout was massive. The FBI called it one of the boldest acts of sports corruption since online betting became legal. For LeBron, it wasn't just a friend's betrayal. It was a direct hit to his carefully built empire. His name surfaced in court documents, not as a defendant, but as the unnamed superstar whose private medical details had been exposed. For a man who had built his career on discipline, control, and image management, it was a nightmare made public. And Charles Barkley wasted no time turning up the heat. On Inside the NBA, he looked straight into the camera and said, "He's just old. Everybody gets old. You can dress it up like sciatica." The line went viral, but few understood the deeper jab. Barkley wasn't mocking LeBron's pain. He was mocking the myth, the idea that King James was eternal, untouchable. Days later, Commissioner Adam Silver stepped up to a microphone with a tone that was deadly serious. There's nothing more important to the league than integrity. He called the gambling probe deeply disturbing and confirmed that both Miami's Terry Rozier and Portland's Chauncey Billups had been placed on leave pending investigation. But what Silver didn't say, and what Barkley later hinted at, was that this scandal ran far deeper than the arrests. Behind the polished statements, insiders whispered about a shadow war, the league's desperate attempt to contain LeBron's empire before it swallowed everything. That war, they say, began in 2023 with the controversial second apron rule. Officially, it was about financial fairness. In reality, it was a leash, a hidden mechanism to stop powerhouse teams like the Lakers from adding more stars once they crossed deep into luxury tax territory. Former executives now admit that was the point. For years, Clutch Sports and LeBron's inner circle had turned roster building into a personal art form, pulling strings through influence and connections. The NBA couldn't openly stop it without looking vindictive, so they disguised the pushback as economic reform. Now, Barkley's comments have ripped that wound back open. He called it what it truly was, the system fighting back. And then came the coincidence no one could ignore. Just as the Damon Jones scandal exploded, LeBron suddenly announced he'd be taking personal time off from the Lakers. Officially, it was sciatica, but many saw it as strategic silence. Around the same time, LeBron's name began circling social media, tied to the chaos surrounding Sean Diddy Combs and his mounting legal battles. LeBron said nothing, no denial, no defense, but in a media landscape built on speculation, that silence spoke volumes. As one former player put it bluntly, LeBron doesn't go quiet unless the room's on fire.
On the show a couple of weeks ago, they said sciatica. They could have just wrote old. It's the exact same thing. Yeah, all old people back hurt. You know, he's got to accept. I hope he leaves sooner than later, because I hate to see great players out there struggling.
Charles Barkley, meanwhile, seemed to be playing a different game, one where he already knew the cards everyone else was still trying to read. During a recent broadcast, he flashed that trademark smirk and doubled down on his jab. They just put "oh" with an extra D, he quipped, mocking the medical excuse the Lakers had fed the media. The timing couldn't have been more precise. Only days after federal prosecutors confirmed that Damon Jones had profited from leaking injury intel, Barkley was openly suggesting that LeBron's physical struggles were being blown out of proportion. To some, it was ruthless. To others, it sounded like a warning, a hint that the injury story was nothing more than cover for something far bigger, maybe a league-wide cover-up, maybe a quiet suspension, or maybe both. Behind closed doors, NBA executives were in full crisis mode, what Commissioner Adam Silver framed in his October 2025 press conference as protecting league integrity was, according to insiders, actually a massive strategic reset. After the arrests of Jones, Terry Rozier, and Chauncey Billups, the league suddenly ordered all teams to restrict certain kinds of prop betting partnerships. Officially, it was a move to safeguard transparency, but sources close to the decision revealed another motive, a direct strike at LeBron's private network of trainers, assistants, and lifelong associates who had blurred the line between friendship and financial access. By clamping down on bets tied to player minutes, health, and injuries, the NBA quietly dismantled the very system that had made LeBron's inner circle so valuable to gamblers, and for the first time in years, stripped him of a power he'd never had to defend before.
The proceeds were later delivered to his home, where the group counted their cash. As the NBA season tips off, his career is already benched, not for injury, but for integrity.
But this is where the story takes an even darker turn. The crackdown on prop betting wasn't just about protecting the game. According to sources inside the league, it was a surgical strike, a deliberate move to strip LeBron James of what little influence he had left. Think about it, his body breaking down, his inner circle under federal investigation, and his brand tangled up in Diddy's ongoing chaos. For the first time in decades, LeBron's grip on the NBA was slipping. And that's exactly when Charles Barkley stepped into the storm. He wasn't just mocking an aging superstar's back pain, he was sending a message. The era of protection was over. Why now? Barkley asked on air, almost rhetorically. His tone said what the words didn't. LeBron's sciatica isn't an injury, it's a smokescreen. And if the league was bold enough to indict LeBron's closest allies, what else were they willing to bury? Why was Barkley the only one with the guts to say it out loud? Because the truth was never about one rule. The second apron rule wasn't a policy shift, it was a declaration of war. Overnight, it dismantled the foundation of LeBron's empire. No more stacking superstars, no more trading the future for friends. The new restrictions, luxury tax spikes, frozen draft picks, block trades, turned the weapon that built his legacy into the chain that broke it. For years, LeBron had built teams like a general assembling armies, but by 2023, the battlefield flipped. Every dollar, every roster move, every decision came with a price. The Lakers, once his kingdom, were now trapped in the ruins of their own ambition. Bloated contracts, no trade flexibility, and the lingering ghosts of the Russell Westbrook experiment. What was meant to be LeBron's final power play had become the symbol of his downfall. And as the chaos unfolded in Los Angeles, the rest of the league began to move on. Teams like Boston and Denver suddenly became the model, built on patience, scouting, and development, not celebrity influence. When Nikola Jokic lifted the finals trophy in 2023, executives across the NBA quietly toasted to what they called the restoration. It wasn't just another championship, it was a message. Balance had returned. The NBA had finally taken back its power from the one man who had spent 20 years bending it to his will.
It matters. Trust me that it matters. EPO matters. It's the reason LeBron takes it. It matters. And if other basketball has understood what it did, EPO increases your red blood cells, which gives you endurance so you can play all game long. You can shoot in the fourth quarter just like you shot in the fourth minute.
More red blood cells, more oxygen in your red blood cells. Okay, got you.
Then came the whispers, the kind that start in locker rooms and end up rewriting legacies. The talk was about LeBron's body, the secret engine that refused to age, that defied time itself. For years, fans asked the same question: how is he still dominating at 40? Enter Chael Sonnen, former UFC fighter and professional provocateur, with an answer that no one wanted to hear. He claimed LeBron James was using EPO, erythropoietin, a powerful endurance booster once infamous for wrecking careers in cycling and track. According to Sonnen, he and LeBron even shared the same supplier. He never offered proof, but his confidence was enough to ignite a firestorm. Within hours, sports talk shows shifted from highlights to hematology, debating blood oxygen levels and recovery rates. And just like that, the phrase performance enhancer began to stick to LeBron's name like static. The rumor resurfaced again and again every few months, and every time, LeBron stayed silent. No denial, no lawsuit, no response. That silence became louder than any statement. Was he protecting his image or protecting a secret that could shatter it?
It's like, no. If you knew what these performance enhancers did, then you would know why it does matter.
What do you think he's
There's
doing?
only one. We have the same guy. If you will, I know exactly what he's doing. But there's only one golfer.
Please tell.
There's only one golfer. I'm not going to. But there's only one golfer that follows the big three. And the big three is EPO, growth hormone, testosterone. That's the Lance Armstrong diet. There's one golfer, but it's Tiger Woods. Like, yes, it does matter.
Tracy McGrady, a Hall of Famer known for his honesty, made things worse. On a podcast in April 2025, he said, "I don't know how he's doing it. I hope it's the right way." That pause, just a few seconds, was enough to reignite the conversation. McGrady never accused him directly, but he didn't need to. The implication hung in the air. Fans replayed the clip millions of times, dissecting every syllable. The question wasn't whether LeBron had ever failed a test. He hadn't. But whether the league itself had any interest in testing him seriously. After all, how do you investigate your biggest asset without risking the brand? But the real question isn't about substances. It's about control. Because after the Damon Jones scandal, the NBA's focus shifted from protecting LeBron to managing his downfall. Insiders claim that league offices began tightening media access, steering coverage away from GAOT debates, and discouraging analysts from calling LeBron the face of basketball. It was subtle at first. Fewer highlights on national broadcasts, reduced presence in promotional material, shorter interviews. Then Barkley started talking on live television. He accused the media of running a propaganda machine for LeBron, one that defended him no matter what. Coming from anyone else, it would have been dismissed, but Barkley has always been untouchable. He doesn't need endorsements, doesn't answer to networks, and doesn't care about access. When he called out the bias, people listened. Behind the cameras, producers began to whisper that something had changed. Coverage guidelines were shifting. One former insider described it as a silent freeze out, a coordinated cooling of LeBron's presence in league narratives. The same media outlets that once worshipped him started pivoting to newer faces, Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, Victor Wembanyama. It wasn't organic, it was strategic. LeBron's dominance had stopped being profitable. It had started being risky. Too many controversies, too many connections to headlines the league didn't want revisited. The diddy parties, the Damon Jones trial, the prop betting investigation, it all made sponsors nervous. For the first time in his career, LeBron's silence wasn't power, it was survival.
Oh, man. Hey, Chuck, what about LeBron? Can you just say this? He hasn't made his debut yet. He's going to turn 41. Is this dude finally, the indestructible guy, is he finally just breaking down and is Father Time kicking his, like Father Time has kicked everybody else's?
You know, Father Time always gonna win. There's nothing you can do about it.
Meanwhile, Charles Barkley refused to let the story die. He kept hammering away, turning every broadcast into an open challenge. Barkley mocked LeBron's sciatica, suggesting it wasn't an injury at all, but a coded message, a forced sabbatical, a quiet exile. The league called it rest, but the timing told another story. The arrests, the gambling crackdowns, the betting restrictions, everything lined up too neatly. What if the injury narrative was really the NBA's way of writing LeBron out without declaring war? One former NBA communications insider hinted as much, saying, "It's easier to manage a legacy than to destroy one." Translation: if the king steps down quietly, the league never has to admit they pushed him off the throne. Even the numbers started to betray him. Financial analysts noted the shift. For the first time since LeBron's arrival in LA, the Lakers' brand value dipped. Endorsement deals that once waited for his approval began drifting elsewhere. Nike's latest campaigns barely featured him. The once iconic King James logo was losing its prime real estate. And even on social media, the modern scoreboard of celebrity relevance, the engagement started to fade. Posts that once ruled timelines now came and went unnoticed. Through it all, Barkley's voice only got louder. He stopped dancing around the truth and said what everyone else was too afraid to. LeBron's not just getting older, he's getting phased out.
All your family and friends are watching TV or on the internet, watching who says something about you, tweeting or on the internet. So, yeah, it's a generation of wussies we're raising.
Generation of wussies. So how do we reverse that? Or is that
It's
genie?
true,
Or is the genie out of the bottle and the cow out of the barn, and there's nothing we can do about it?
To see the full picture, you have to understand the NBA's past. In the early 2000s, the league revolved around one man, Michael Jordan. When he retired, revenue plunged. The lesson was clear: never let a single player hold all the power again. So when LeBron James rose as the next global icon, the league prepared for every eventuality. Backup stars, future franchises, contingency plans, all ready to pivot when his era inevitably shifted. That's why, as LeBron's dominance wanes, the league isn't mourning. It's maneuvering, rebranding, shifting the spotlight to new faces, fresh narratives, and cleaner headlines. The gambling scandal provided the perfect excuse for a reset. Integrity became the mask for a far deeper power play. And perhaps that's the cruelest twist. For decades, LeBron controlled the game. Now the game is controlling him. Every public appearance feels rehearsed. Every injury update reads like a coded signal. Every silence carries more weight than any statement. We once believed LeBron's most controversial decisions were his own. But what if the choices that now define his legacy aren't his to make? When Charles Barkley quips that LeBron's sciatica is old age dressed up, it might sound like humor. Look closer, and it feels like prophecy, because this isn't just about fatigue or pain, it's about power, the kind that fades when there are no longer people left to command. The empire he built on loyalty, influence, and fear is being dismantled piece by piece, while everyone pretends it's just another season.
Criticism goes with the job. Criticism goes with our job, whether it's you on radio, television, me being as a player. You can never be sensitive.
LeBron's so-called injury isn't just about age, it's about the NBA finally winning. After years of being held hostage by his influence, the league has reasserted control. And if that's true, his time away from the court isn't the end of a career. It's the end of an empire. The second apron rule didn't just balance the books, it buried a dynasty. Now, the real question isn't whether LeBron will play again. It's whether he will ever truly matter in a league that has already moved on. The league got what it wanted, but how far will they go to make sure it stays that way? We want to hear from you. Was this a fair correction of power or the quiet takedown of a legend? Drop your thoughts below, because the story is far from over. And as always, we'll be watching the next chapter unfold. Until then, stay alert, stay curious, and never believe everything they tell you.